Joining us tonight, Carla Robbins, Deputy Editorial Page Editor of the New York Times, and Gideon Rose, Managing Editor of Foreign Affairs Magazine. Nice to see you both. All right, so we had the meeting between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House. Not
a bonding moment.
No, it did not appear to be a bonding moment.
But not a fight either.
Well, let's see. You have, the Prime Minister comes in and he wants to talk about Iran. You have the President, he wishes to speak about a two-state solution. Was this meeting a success?
Well, I suppose it was a success in the sense that they didn't come to fisticuffs. I don't think either persuaded the other one, but it was a bridging agreement in the sense that the President Obama said that he would come to some sort of decision on what to do about Iran before the end of the year. His patience was not infinite. And Mr. Netanyahu very carefully said that he was cajoled into saying that he would consider peace negotiations, but he didn't say the words, he didn't say the two-state solution. He didn't commit himself to a real settlement. So
many people thought they would hear that. At least the Israeli media had kind of played up that we were going to hear that phrase coming from the Prime Minister. We didn't. What we did hear, Gideon, he arrives back in Israel, and then Prime Minister Netanyahu maintains that Jerusalem will never be a divided city. It will always be under Israel's control. This, of course, would be greatly disconcerting to the Palestinians who would like to share the city. Is this rhetoric, or is it really a roadblock?
Well, we don't know. And one of the things is they each have domestic audiences they have to play to, and Obama's got a political coalition he has to maintain. But in terms of the meeting with Obama, Netanyahu's got a coalition he has to maintain. In terms of the meeting with Obama, I think that you should see this a little bit like Obama's meeting with the Pakistanis or the Afghan leadership, in the sense that the United States has a problem here because Israel is obsessed with an external national security threat and is not particularly seized with its domestic, internal national security threat. And the United States is trying to get the Netanyahu government to recognize that whatever the situation is going on with Iran, the Palestinian issue has to be dealt with and can't just be kicked to the back burner for another several more years. And the Netanyahu government doesn't want to recognize this because they don't want to make the necessary tough decisions internally to sell to their publics.
Netanyahu got some help from an unexpected source. Iran launches the Sigil-2 missile. It's a long-range missile, about 1,200 miles, I believe, in capability. It worries, of course, Israel, worries the United States when you think, what if it had a nuclear warhead on it? What does this do to the Obama overtures that have been made? Is this a setback?
No, I don't think it's a setback. I think it's one more reminder of why you can't wait indefinitely to deal with Iran. I mean, the Iranians are really quite straightforward. They're developing a capability to produce fuel, which could be used for a nuclear weapon. They're developing a capability to deliver a nuclear weapon. This is why it has to be dealt with. I mean, the Israelis are right. This is not something that you want to let go on for a decade. The question is 6 months, a year, 5 years. There's going to be a big discussion about how long, how much patience, and a big discussion about what you do with it. I mean, I don't believe that there's a military solution. The Israelis are implying that they might take military action itself. I don't think there's a solution for this militarily, but that's going to be the game not only between Iran and its neighbors in the United States, it's going to be the game between Israel and the United States.
Who's got more patience, Gideon?
Well, the Americans have a lot more patience than the Israelis do, but the Americans also have the upper hand if they choose to use it. The most interesting thing to watch will be if Iran does move forward, comes very close to the nuclear threshold, and the Israelis really start champing at the bit and want to try and strike them, at whether the United States uses the tools at its disposal, which it has, to simply tell the Israelis, no, you can't do this. There are lots of levers they can press, and whether the Obama administration will do that.
There's also a fundamental question whether the Israelis even have the military capability to fly that far and have a sustained bombing campaign. This is not a one-hit thing. And they're very dependent on the United States militarily. So there are a lot of unknowns here, but the interesting thing is the posturing, because on a certain level, Obama could use the implied Israeli threat to get the Europeans, to get the Russians, to get the Chinese, to get people to pay attention to the need for serious diplomatic pressure and economic pressure on Iran, because nobody wants a military attack from Israel.
Before we run out of time, I want to get to the great debate, which is how the week ended, and that is with former Vice President Dick Cheney and then President Obama, both outlining their viewpoints on national security. Who won that debate?
Well, for me, there was never a debate to begin with. There's no question of the failed policies of the last 8 years. And the American public voted against this, and President Obama made a very clear commitment, and he said that America is safer if it lives up to its values, that by violating values that we fed the furies of the rest of the world, we've made ourselves less secure. Now,
you didn't find anything in what the Vice President had to say that had traction with you?
Absolutely not. The question and the frightening thing is that the Bush administration was very good at bullying the Congress and frightening the American public for a very long time. And you see the Congress even this week, including Democrats, saying that they don't want to have any terrorists come to American soil, as if there weren't any maximum security prisons left. The unfortunate thing about this is that for 8 years the Bush administration did this and cowed Congress and frightened the American public. The president gave a very, very clear and very compelling argument. I hope people were listening.
Did the Democrats cave on the president? This gets to the issue of fear that was brought up. They were sort of painted here that they might be weak on terror and they don't want these terrorists coming to America, and they backed away from funding the
Congress knuckled under to political pressures. I'm shocked to find out that something like that is going on. I mean, I don't think anybody takes Congress seriously when it comes to national security debates, frankly. So it's not surprising to me that the congressional votes don't show a clear, consistent, intelligent, responsible adult approach to these matters. That said, I think this was a great debate because it was over what the campaign itself lacked. McCain wasn't really running for a Bush third term, but Cheney would almost have liked to. And this is what a debate would have been if Cheney had been on the ticket. And I think Obama got the better of him, frankly, because that sort of nuanced, mature, reasonable, people can disagree approach plays well to people like me. But Cheney had the guts to say what he thought and in very stark ways, and I think it actually helped clarify the terms of debate.
We're going to have to end it there. Gideon Rose,
In
Carla Robbins.
defense of Dick Cheney, Gideon Rose.
Thank you both.